Hello, Jill.
Hi, kia ora. From Auckland, New Zealand. Tamaki Makaurau is the name for Auckland. So actually we started the Women's Rights Party the night of Kellie-Jay Keen's visit to New Zealand, because a couple of us who were both Labour Party women decided that we were going to resign from the Labour Party. And my friend was saying that she was going to vote for a party that I said you couldn't possibly vote for. And I decided that I wasn't going to vote at all. But during that conversation that night, we decided that we should have a women's rights party. And so we both resigned from the Labour Party, where we'd held leading positions nationally across Tamaki Makaurau and the whole of Aotearoa, New Zealand. So we were really angry, actually. A lot of people talk about being traumatised and intimidated and so on, but we were really angry. And we were angry because in the whole week before Kellie-Jay Keen came to New Zealand, ever since the Melbourne event, we had been bombarded by the media with allegations that she was a Nazi and that anyone that supported her was a Nazi. We had our leaders of both the Labour Party and the Greens coming out and saying, oh, we can't actually stop her coming to New Zealand, although they did try. There was a group tried to stop her coming, but because we are a colonial country and she's a British citizen, she couldn't be stopped. But they then went on to slag her off, call anybody that would support her transphobes. And so that just outraged me. And so I decided that I was going to go and speak as a woman of the left, because of the allegations that this issue is only about women from the right. And so I wanted to also speak to the allegations of Nazis and point out that Nazis are absolutely no friends of women, that they put socialist women and Jewish women into concentration camps with their children and conducted horrendous medical experiments on women. And at the same time, of course, the neo-Nazis are a bunch of misogynists whose only goal is to disrupt and discredit the women's movement by turning up. And so, in fact, I had gone out on Facebook and suggested that I thought that those neo-Nazis in Melbourne didn't look like neo-Nazis to me in their little shorts and T-shirts. I've never seen them dressed like that before, to which I got told, oh, well, there were neo-Nazis at the Auckland event, and somebody showed me a picture. And I had actually seen these four guys over with the 2,000 trans activist supporters carrying New Zealand flags. So I said, oh, I didn't realise the New Zealand flag was a Nazi symbol. But anyway, so we went on to have a Zoom meeting, and we started the party. And in very quick succession, as Janet's outlined, we've got all the things necessary to register as a party, but in New Zealand, we have to have 500 registered members who have paid their fees. They've got to be financial and they've got to be eligible to vote. And so it's quite a high barrier. I believe some states in Australia are that high and some have much less, only about 100 to get. We're about halfway there, and we have to get the registration material in by July 15th, because we've got an election this year in October. So the thing that's happened since we got started is that there's been the so-called Parker effect, referring to Posey Parker, of course, with the Disinformation Project, which is a very biased group that is claiming that there's been horrendous hateful comments about trans people on Facebook. But at the same time, we can claim the Parker effect because it's actually piqued so many New Zealand women and men that we've got new Facebook groups starting up. We've got thousands, literally thousands of people joining these Facebook groups. They're all looking at small parties to vote for, because when the Births, Deaths, Marriages and Relationships Bill went before the Select Committee and went to Parliament, although 70% of the submissions were opposed to self-sex ID, not a single MP, not from the right, not from the left, not a single MP in Parliament voted against that. And they actually treated, the people on the Select Committee treated those who made presentations with absolute disdain. And as a Labour Party councillor, national councillor, I had been on the selection panel for some of these women, much to my shame. So I'd really love somebody to go and stand against some of these women who treated us so badly. So anyway, we've made a lot of progress in the very short time that we've been going. We're already halfway there to meeting our goal of the 500 that we need. And just today we had a meeting in Auckland where everybody took 5 membership forms and 5 flyers and committed to going and signing up 5 other people from their peer group. So we're hopeful that we'll get there. I'm just going to talk a little bit about what we're intending to do. You know, as Janet said from my bio, we want to give women an option on the ballot paper. So we have a system with MMP, which means that you can stand a list if we can get registered. And that means that on the ballot paper will be our logo all over the country, even if we don't have any candidates. But we do plan to have some candidates. But nevertheless, the point is we just want to have that party logo on every ballot paper so that people have an option. Because if we just don't vote, which was my initial reaction, no one's going to notice. But if we can get sufficient votes from the women and men of New Zealand, then hopefully those parties that will be in Parliament will take notice. It's very difficult to get into Parliament under MMP. You have to actually either win a seat, which usually involves small parties being given a seat by one of the main parties so that they've got a partner. That's unlikely to happen for us. And so you have to reach 5% of the vote, which is a very high bar. And most parties don't go anywhere near that, smaller parties, certainly not in their first year. However, what we hope to do is to impress on them that these issues are very important to the women and men of New Zealand. So we are organising and advocating for women and girls' sex-based rights as we contest the parliamentary election this year. And we think it's important in the local bodies as well, because some of our councils have decided that self-sex ID means that they could let men into our swimming pool changing sheds, which is probably in breach of our Human Rights Act, which does actually protect single-sex spaces for reasons of privacy and safety, and allows us to be protected in terms of discrimination as a sex. Nevertheless, we've had situations like in the Linwood pools in Christchurch where there was a women's only swimming opportunity, which was frequented a lot by Muslim women, for example, and older women too. And they have said that men, you know, who identify as women can come into those changing sheds. And now there was a meeting in Invercargill a week or so ago where 100 people turned up because the new Splash Palace is going to allow men into the women's changing sheds. And their solution was to make all the changing sheds family sheds. So that's really not a solution to the issues that we're raising. So a couple of things that are happening right now that we want to highlight during the election campaign, which is a big issue too. women who've got kids in school is that they're about to introduce the sexuality and gender relationships curriculum, which is completely, you mentioned, I think it was with Isla, completely not, oh no, it was Lynn, sorry, age appropriate at all, and very confusing to kids. And we've got a situation where I know, because we've got high school kids in our family, that they feel they can't speak out at all. And I worry about these issues, I should say. And I worry about the next generation of young women who are being brought up to believe they cannot speak out. In addition, a whole lot of things have been going through, like the Conversion Practices Act, and now one on integrity in sport, which doesn't even mention women, and for people representing gender interests to be elected onto school boards of trustees. All this is happening pretty much under the radar. People are very angry when they find out how far through these pieces of legislation have gone. So that's why we're in the political arena, because a lot of this stuff is happening under the radar, in the political arena, and not subject to decent debate. So just to wrap up, we're about protecting the rights of women and children, as I said, and we advocate for women's sex-based rights so that they're not eroded, but also we would like to see our rights respected and extended. And we feel that our voices are being ignored. Nobody's asking us, nobody's asking women who've been sexually abused, or Muslim women, or any of us, how we feel about having men coming into our changing sheds. We feel that we're cancelled in academia and we're being ignored in the mainstream media. For example, I put out a media release for the Women's Rights Party last week about the amazing UN rapporteur's Salem's statements about women should be able to speak out about these issues without fear of intimidation and without violence. That was ignored, pretty much ignored by the media. So, and we feel we can't rely on the police that to protect us and our rights to assemble and to speak. So we're campaigning around these sorts of rights, and we're focusing on a wider range of issues, though, because our issues as women are wide-ranging, and they include women's sex-based rights, but also we've got a lot of issues in women's healthcare. Women's healthcare is not prioritised, and while you would never say anything other than a man gets prostate cancer, people with cervical cancer are cervix havers, not women. And of course, there's the whole issue with maternity services, which seem to be right at the epicentre of this whole debacle. And then there's the issue of children's education, and also recognition of women's contributions to society. So we have an employment part of our policy platform, which includes pay equity, childcare, and decent superannuation for women. So that's what we're trying to do. The big thing right now is to get that 500, and that's quite a barrier, but we're getting there, and we've got a bit of time to get there. I just wanted to finish up by saying that we do support in our policy the Women's Declaration International and CEDAW, and we are an internationalist party that stands in solidarity with the women of other countries, particularly Australia. Thank you.